my talk. Here we go. How he said he living life as a gringo, where you question where you fit in every time you mingle. They say you do this with not enough that. My rapping is really bad. This life as a gringo.
Yes, hello and welcome to another episode of Life as a Gringo. I am Dramos, of course. And man, today we are going to be bringing you another one of the masterminds that I did for the Just Be Social Club. This one is actually a live podcast taping that we did, an interview with Wendy Amara, who's a life coach, a business coach. And if you're not familiar at this point, the Just Be Social Club, it's a monthly mastermind group that I host, all about, personal growth and, trying to just have a community around you and your goals, be it personal, be it career-wise, and having people to lean on who are like-minded from our community, who are just trying to better themselves in life. And once a month, in addition to the kind of personal group meetup that we'll do, I'll also bring on a guest who is, some sort of life coach or an expert in a particular field, just so you can kind of get a better feel and get some advice and different perspective and ask questions, and just to have, I guess a little bit more value and bringing people into your circle that are high achieving and really have been doing a lot of work in the space of personal growth to hopefully help push you to get to where you want to be. So we're going to be airing a bit of that conversation that we had last mastermind, Just Be Social Club with Wendy Amara. Really good stuff, all about kind of goal setting and mindset work and getting over the fear that comes into play when we begin to set goals, and how to, get yourself out there taking action, the importance of all of that. I'm going to get into a bunch of different things with Wendy. She was incredible. Again, we are doing one more group. I'm going to be opening up a new group for the Just Be Social Club, our monthly mastermind. And that starts in July. So if you want to be a part of that, email brenda@mindofayounglord.com or just send me a DM on Instagram at DJ Dramos, and I'll get your email, and we'll set up all the information. We could do a one-on-one little kind of meet up via Zoom and just kind of see if it's a good fit. And if you think, if you have any questions you want to ask me personally and things like that. So trying to get another group together. I mean, in this conversation, you'll hear Wendy talk about how important it is to have people in your life who hold you accountable, and not necessarily like friends in your life who are going to give you give you a break if you don't go and do the things you say you're going to do, but having actual people there that are, more so people that you've met, acquaintances, I guess, that are there literally because they're trying to be better, and you hold each other to that same kind of level of accountability. And that's what we do with Just Be Social Club. We have a private chat that we have together via Instagram, and everybody's able to kind of bounce ideas off each other. You also are able to kind of get in contact with whomever you want from the group, and you guys can be accountability buddies. But all that kind of stuff, I've seen a tremendous amount of growth for everybody that's been a part of our kind of OG group that we have. And even for me personally, it's been a really kind of huge learning experience and so much growth. And it's been great to have a community like that. So if you want to be a part of it, again, email brenda@mindofayounglord.com or just shoot me a DM at DJ Dramos on Instagram, and I'll check that out and send you all the info. But without further ado, let's get into my conversation from our live podcast as a part of the Just Be Social Club with Wendy Amara. And we'll do it in our Mi Gente segment.
Mi Gente.
But man, without further ado, let's get into our guest today, right? So anybody not familiar, she is a life and business coach. She is the host of the Yes Mujer Built It podcast. She has over 16 years in coaching and 1.5 million in sales, which just sounds absolutely insane. Good for you. Our guest today, Wendy Amara. How you feeling?
Hello, Dramos. I'm feeling really good. I'm excited to be here with all of you. Thank you for the invite. I want to give a big hug to Bren also for making this connection and having me be on here. Yeah. And I'm excited to speak with all of you.
Yes, I'm excited as well. I've heard so many good things, and I kind of want to just kind of start diving into it because, for those who have been in our mastermind group from the beginning of the year, we are at that halfway mark, right? And, we started the year with kind of 2 words to set the intention for what we wanted our year to look like.
And then we got a little bit more specific as time went on to maybe what would be one big goal we wanted to see ourselves do by the end of the year. And I think first and foremost, the big thing that I've begun to notice is the self-awareness that's begun to develop in everybody as we begin having these conversations, which is obviously huge. So I wanted to kind of double down on that a bit and focus in on some of the practical things that you discuss when it comes to goal setting and achieving those bigger goals for yourself. And I want to start with something you had posted about inspired action. And I really loved this phrasing that you have. And I would love for you to be able to share that with everybody listening. What exactly is inspired action?
Yeah, well, the first thing that pops in my head is it's my group coaching program, because that's what I named.
Yeah.
Inspired action. But it's actually your ability to take action from an inspired place, right? To find inspiration as opposed to waiting to be inspired. You finding inspiration, you searching for the inspiration or being the inspiration, and then taking action from that place. So that's inspired action. It's action from a place of inspiration, which if you're going to take big, messy action, that's the best place to take it from.
Right. And I think it's interesting because so many of us are waiting for the right time. And anybody not seeing the video, I'm using air quotes, right? Like the right time to start this. We're looking for a sign from someone, the okay from someone to do, this idea we've had in the back of our minds. And I think we're forgetting that it all starts first and foremost with ourselves, right? Like I think as with anything, the external is always going to kind of fade pretty quickly, right? Be it, external validation, external love, all those kinds of things kind of come and go. You're not in control of it. And it all starts from within. So, I mean, talk to me a little bit about that power, I guess, for you of why even having to say it in that way is so powerful for everybody to know, like, hey, like, it starts with you actually getting off your ass first and foremost, more than anything else, in this journey.
100%. It starts with you taking action, right? And not just taking action once. So taking action 2, 3, 4, 5 times over and over again. And even if you fall flat on your face, 9 out of the 10 times you took action, what you're doing is you're building a muscle called your follow through muscle, which is required. I'll say that again. It's required for you to reach your goal. If you don't follow through, you're not going to reach your goal. So you have to be able to build this muscle. I call it getting in the water. Like taking action is like getting in the water when you really want to learn to swim. Like let's say your goal is you're swimming laps back and forth in a pool. That's you reaching your goal. You getting in the water is step 1, right? Of taking action. But what I see a lot of people do, just like you explained, Dramos, is a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines, literally like on the bench next to the pool, reading a book about how to swim. Yeah. Or worse, reading a catalog about the right swimsuit to have while you're swimming. So they're sitting next to the pool. They're not even in the pool, but they're worried about the swimsuit. They're worried about the right towel. They're worried about their hair. They're worried about, like, am I going to do the breaststroke or the freestyle or whatever? I don't even know the names of the different types of
sure.
Do at the pool. Yeah. And I'm like, listen, get in the water. Just put one foot in the water. And then put another foot in. And the fear that comes up when people actually start to take action on their goals. I mean, that's really big. For a lot of them, it's physical fear that you can feel in the body, right? Because the thought is, I can't get in the water. I'm going to drown if I get in the water. If I get in the water, I'm going to end up drowning and then I'll never swim laps. And that's actually not true. You can get in the water and stay in the shallow end. You can get in the water and put a life vest on. There's a lot of things you can do. But none of it becomes real until you actually step into the water and start to take action towards your goals.
Yeah, I think you're kind of touching almost on perfectionism to a degree. Also holds people back, right? So much that they don't feel prepared or they don't, feel like it's going to look exactly like they have it in their head. Therefore, they're not ready to kind of get it started, And I think I had written down managing fear because I saw that was something you had spoken a lot about, and that resonates a lot. I think particularly for people who are doing this for the first time, but if you've taken some risks and you have fallen on your face, it is hard. It gets hard to get back up sometimes, right? There is a lot that starts popping up in your mind. I know I'm speaking to my own personal things, particularly in my own industry where I'm just constantly, you have doors slammed in your face day after day, essentially. There are points in time where I'm just like, I don't know if I can keep handling another no after, and another door being slammed in my face. So I guess when you're coaching people and maybe they're pushed up against that point where they're just kind of like, it feels like nothing is going my way and I'm scared to get hurt again, essentially. How do you help them manage that fear and kind of push past it?
Yeah, first we focus on, let's look at what is working in your life right now. Because there's always more things that are working in our benefit than are not. Even when it feels like the door has been slammed in our face 100 times. And maybe it has in a particular area of our life. But if you stop, take a deep breath, and think about, what are all the things that I have in my life currently to be grateful for? Or forget being grateful for. What are all the things on the right side of my body that I have to be grateful for? It doesn't have to be in my life, right? It doesn't have to be outside of me. Or what are all the things in my pinky that I'm grateful for? Doesn't have to be anything big. There's a million things happening in my, fingers that I'm grateful for. The fact that I can move them, the fact that there's tendons that work in there, right? That there's blood flow to my fingernails. I mean, there's so many things. We can break it down. What happens in the human brain is it tends to focus on the things that aren't working. This is all human brains, by the way, guys. It tends to focus more on what's in the gap, right? Between where you're at right now and where you want to go. So like, for example, you may have 10 things on your to-do list and you do 7 of them. But at the end of the night, when you're putting your head down to go to bed, you're only going to think about the 3 things you didn't get done. Like your brain's automatically going to go to, oh, but you forgot to do that email. You didn't put the laundry away. And you never called that person back. Versus the 7 things you did get done that were on your to-do list. But the brain tells us, oh, that's just normal stuff. That's like average, normal. You shouldn't celebrate yourself. That's not a big deal. No, that is a big deal. So the first thing I do with my clients in all of my coaching, my groups and in my one-on-ones is get them reconnected to the part of them that is getting things done, the things that are working in their favor, the doors that are being opened or were recently opened, or the windows that are currently open, and focus on that. Because from that place, then we can build. We can build from a place of, yes, this is working in my life, versus being stuck in the no, this isn't working. So I teach them about their brain, then we reassess, and then we also build a new relationship with failure, where we start to see failure as just part of the process. Like it's normal. It's a normal part of the process. In fact, if you fail, I remember one of my coaches early on was like, fail 100 times. I guarantee you're going to learn a bunch of stuff. Keep track of your first 100 failures. Because if you fail 100 times, you're going to have learned like 500 lessons in that 100 times you failed. So she would actually make me keep track, like write down all my failures on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. And she was like, yes, let's keep going. Let's get to 100 failures. The thought was, keep taking risks, right? That was the lesson. Keep taking risks, because one of these days, one of those doors is going to open. They are. If you knock on 500 doors, one of those doors is going to open.
Yeah, I love how you're putting that. I think it's focusing on what you can control, right? I can't control the person on the other side of that door if they're going to open it or not, but I can control if I got my head in order to keep knocking on doors, right? That part of it I'm in control of, and as long as I stay committed to that, something is bound to happen, which is definitely something I try to remind myself of. And I love the idea of accepting failure as a part of the process, and just seeing it as like this necessary step in all that we're doing. I think obviously, like you said, everything is with the mind, right? And I think we like forget that we catastrophize things more and make them way worse than they actually generally are in our real lives. Me getting a no potentially, it's disappointing, but does it really have a catastrophic effect on how the rest of my day, week, or life is going to go? No, probably not, right? There's always going to be something else tomorrow that potentially I could do and get big news that moves me forward. So I love that focus on like, you have to kind of get in tune with your mind and play the sort of, have like the battle back and forth and get control of that part of yourself and have it refocus into the positive stuff.
Yeah. And it's hard to do. Listen, it is hard to do. This is brain training we're talking about. It's literally retraining your brain because your brain comes with default setting, right? And default setting for most of us, especially if you're first generation or if you grew up in a, household that didn't have a lot of money, or we're not the center of the way the society was built. So if you're on the margins, like most of us are, then we grew up in a household that didn't necessarily feed into us this idea of you can do whatever you want. You have it in you to build. We tend to grow up in a society that tends to feed what I call our fearful look, right? That things aren't working in our favor. Oh no, the economy is going to collapse. Oh no, there's going to be another pandemic. Oh no, what if you lose your job? Oh, like all these oh no's and what ifs. And that's what's constantly being fed to us. So we have to look for other food, really, it comes down to other people who think differently and surround ourselves by people who are actually moving in the direction of their goals, their vision, their building, they're actually moving past all the negativity. But society definitely feeds the negativity in it. So it's really hard unless you're in a sustained group that is supporting you each step of the way to shift your brain by yourself. It's really hard. Sometimes it's even hard to notice your brain. Yeah. Right. I ask people all the time, like, well, tell me the thought that caused that behavior to happen. And people are like, what are you talking about? The thought. What do you mean the thought that caused that behavior? Yeah. What was the thought behind that result that you got? And worse, if I say feeling, what do you think is the feeling that you were feeling? Some people are disconnected from their bodies. They don't even know exactly what it is they're feeling, or they're numb. They're not even feeling anything. Yeah. This is where awareness becomes so important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you talk about surrounding yourself with people, because I think sometimes you just need that reminder of what is possible, right? Like that's why representation matters so much in Hollywood and every aspect of the things that we ingest. Like it's because you just sometimes it's as simple as just seeing somebody do it or somebody reminding you that it's possible, and it just puts you right back on track. You know what I mean? Like I think sometimes we overcomplicate what we need. And again, it's just sometimes you need those bumpers like in the bowling alley. You know what I mean? Like the kiddie bumpers just to kind of push you back on track when you're just about to go off the rails, which obviously is why I love doing something like this and why it has been, I think, so impactful for all of us. And another thing I wanted to ask you about that I saw on your page was the get it done mindset. Can you define the get it done mindset?
Sure. So what I really look at when I look at my life in terms of the success that I've had in my life, right? And quote unquote, I'm doing your air quotes now for success. Everybody defines that differently, right? But success for me is like being able to pick my kids up at 2:00 from school every day. And still, make really good money doing work that I love. So that to me is success. That's how I define success. Kind of having the time to be able to spend with my family or be on vacation or do the things that I love to do and not have to worry about money, not have to worry about a boss, or not have to worry about coworkers that I don't like working with.
Yeah.
That's success. So when I look at my life in terms of success, one of the pillars that I've really stood on, or one of the muscles that I've built, is this muscle of getting things done, like actually learning how to accomplish things. And I think so many coaches and also programs and workbooks and all that kind of stuff that's out there focuses a lot on planning, like making a plan, right? Figuring out what you want to do and then mapping it out, which is great. But so much is needed in terms of the implementation part, the taking action, and not just taking some action, taking consistent action, taking messy action, and being in the water on a regular basis. That's where the real growth happens. And then evaluating that, actually sitting back and looking at, okay, what did I do this week that, was uncomfortable, that allowed me an opportunity to grow? And what worked in my favor, what didn't work in my favor, what would I do differently? If I didn't follow through, what became more important? All of that evaluation part, I don't think we spend enough time in. So getting it done means actually crossing the line, meaning doing the things that we say we're going to do, being a person of your word, following the behavior, the message you're giving out to the universe, because the universe is always listening, guys. So what is the message that you want to give to the universe? If you're serious about reaching your goals, then you've got to follow through with the uncomfortable work. and figure it out as you go along. You will figure it out as you go along, as you continue to move forward. Getting it done is about sitting in implementation, sitting in uncomfortable action, sitting in all the ways in which your brain is going to try to stop you and still moving forward, still getting to the finish line, still checking off the list. Eventually, as you build these muscles, you get better and better at it. So eventually you get to a place where you just say things and they become real. Like you say something and you decide, I'll give you an example. I had this event in LA a couple weeks ago for the launch of my podcast called Yes, Mujer, Build It. So I threw a launch party and I just decided 2 months before the party that it was going to be a success. Like I decided, okay, it's going to be successful. Here's how many people are going to show up. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to celebrate. Before I had all the pieces in place, right? Before there was the reality of it being a success or not. I decided in my mind first. It was a belief I had. And then I took action from that belief. So when you get to a place where your get it done muscle is strong enough, you say things and they become real. They become real because you take action from that place. I mean, it's not some mind like woo-woo work that you're just sitting there and meditating.
Right.
You believe it. And then that version of you takes action. And then of course it becomes real. Real.
You're speaking to, I feel like, a concept that I've applied without having the words for it in the way that you're talking about it. But in like reflecting back on how, because I always say I'm a master manifestor because just somehow, some way, it always happens that, the things that I plan out always end up happening. But it is because of that, because I have that belief that it's going to happen. And then that belief exudes confidence, and that confidence makes me ask questions that somebody else who's stuck in analysis paralysis that they wouldn't ask. You know what I mean? So that person who's over planning and like is trying to, they're still not sure if it's actually going to happen and trying to figure it out. I've already made up my, in my mind, like you said, that it's going to happen. So I'm asking questions that are going to open those doors, or I'm, taking different actions or doing research or poking, poking the bear in different ways that ends up leading to my desired result. Right. But I love how you put that, because it's like, yeah, you decide it, and then it sets you off on this path of, I know it's possible. I know it's going to happen. Therefore, I don't have that fear all the time of like, what should I do next, or what should I do this? You're just in action all the time, which I think is kind of what you're speaking to. And yeah, I relate to that so much. I'm thinking like even just like my radio career and the balls that I had to, like the audacity I had to go up to certain bosses and ask for things. But it was like, that's what got me to where I am, is because I already believed that it was going to happen. I believed it was going to happen quickly. And like, I believe that I deserved to be there, in that way. And it allowed me to push past a lot of my peers that I started with, because I just went into it with that mindset. So yeah, you're speaking to my soul.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad. Yes. Yes. So you know what I'm talking about when you get to a place where you're just being that.
Yeah.
And then of course you're just calling in that. But in order to get there, you have to build these muscles, right? It takes a little bit of time, because at the beginning, you're not even sure exactly what direction to go in, or what are the thoughts, or what are the beliefs. This is where the action comes in. You can't build the muscle. It's like going to the gym. You're not going to build the muscles unless you go do the workouts. You got to be at the gym to do the workouts. Yeah. It's the only way you're going to build it.
Yeah. And this leads, I think, perfectly into something else that you had talked about, the future self experience. And I want to dive into that a little bit, because that has been something, not necessarily exactly in the way that you described, but for me, I always ask myself, like, is what I'm doing, the behavior, the actions that I'm taking, beneficial of the person that I want to become? Like, are they in effort to that grander picture that I have for my life? And that's kind of how I begin to judge how I spend my time, or decisions that I make, and how I try to discipline myself to not, kind of fall off the path or go on a crazy shopping spree if I know the future self wants to invest in this type of thing, right? So can we talk a bit about that, the future self experience, and kind of keeping your future self in mind?
Yeah, wonderful. Yes, the future self experience is actually a training I do where you get to meet and connect with the future version of you, right? So it starts to get you into your body connected to, let's say, 5 years from now, 2028 version of Dramos, right? How old are you? How old are the people around you? Where are you living? Where are you working? What does your bank account look like? What does your body look like? you start to ask yourself all these questions, right? Of where do I see myself 5 years from now? What do I want to build? What do I want to create? If it was 100% up to me and time and money were not an issue, where would my life be at in 5 years? What would I want for my life? So you start to ask these juicy questions, because I'm a firm believer that your future self is alive in you right now, right? You're creating him through your connections and through your decisions every day. Like what you decide to eat or not eat, what you decide to drink or not drink is affecting 2028 Dramos, right? Or 2028 Wendy. So that person, that version of you is alive in you right now, just like the 7-year-old version of you is alive in you right now. Or the 15-year-old version. Yeah. We just need to stop and connect with them. And the thing about the future self is that the future version of you has a bunch of information that's really valuable to you right now. Really valuable to you because the future version of you has already done it. They've already accomplished the thing. You know, and how do we know this? Because you're thinking of it, right? This is you coming up with your future version. So to tap into asking them and interviewing them and getting feedback from them, getting coaching from them, getting information from them, like, how did you do it? What did you do? What worked? What was the strategy? What were you connected to, right? That's so valuable. The beautiful thing about future self-work is that you can tap into that anytime. Anytime. You can tap into that at any point in time. And throughout your day, you could just close your eyes and think about, okay, in 2028, where do I want to be living? What do I want my typical day to look like? Right? What do I want to get up? Who do I want to get up to? What do I want to have for breakfast? Who's around me? Like I start thinking about the ages of my kids, ages of my husband, and like, you know, all that, right? Where do we live? What do I feel? And tapping into that energy on a regular basis starts to build this relationship with your future self. And then you can make decisions. Like you just said, Dramos, that I think is so great is you think about how is this going to affect me in 3 years? How is this going to affect me in 5 years when you're making decisions? Yeah, you can make decisions from your future self. So your future self is the one actually making the decision. Hey, you know, don't eat that cupcake. I don't want to weigh more in 5 years than I weigh now. Yeah.
Yeah. I love how practical it is. Like, it's not this whole big ordeal, like how you can just kind of, like you said, quickly close your eyes in the middle of the day and just begin feeling it. I like, you know, you hear the things that like you know, the mind or the body doesn't know if something you're feeling or is real, right? You can trick your body into thinking that you're actually there, that you are in that dream home, or you're in that, you know, your bank account has as many zeros as you're hoping it does, right? And you can feel that happiness right now and trick your body into, you know, existing in that state of mind already, right? And I think that that's a lot of what you're talking about. And then I think on the B side of that, for me, it's also like, you know, when you get a car and then all of a sudden you start noticing that same exact car everywhere you go, right? Because your mind is like automatically training now to look for it. Like what I've noticed is when I'm, you know, constantly visualizing these goals or where I want to be, I just begin picking up on little things in my environment that like are kind of the breadcrumbs that are going to lead me towards that path. I think that's what I've begun to notice as well.
Yes, beautiful. Exactly. That's exactly the work. It's noticing along your path. And it's just because, like you said, you bought the red car and now you see a red car everywhere. Yeah.
Right.
It's just you've highlighted in your brain, oh, this is what I want. And so you start to spend a little bit more time in what do I want to create and less time thinking about what's not working in my life or what am I not having, or I should be at this point by now, or I should be making this amount of money, or I should have this. So you stop shooting on yourself as much, right?
Yeah.
Start creating more because you're just focused on creation more. I mean, this is what I tell my clients all the time is there's really no difference between me and you. I just spend more time in, I'm a badass. Like I just spend more time there than I do in, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But I also have that thought, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Sure.
I spend more time in, I'm going to figure it out, or I'm a badass, or I've got this, or you've climbed higher mountains, Wendy, you can do this. I've just trained my brain to spend more time in those thoughts and those beliefs. And that's it. It's just a matter of percentages. Maybe I'm, 60% in a positive thought or a belief about myself, and 40% in the doubtful, fearful thought. And that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's all you kind of need, right? It's not about being perfect or like your mind is just like, now you're like a robot towards just positivity. It's just not a natural thing to have an expectation. I think for me, what I've noticed is like when I have the negative thoughts, my brain automatically begins to have a conversation with myself. And the good part of me begins just poking holes in the negative version story, and little by little that just becomes deflated and I don't really feel it anymore. And I think that to me is like the practical way to look at it. It's not like those thoughts are not going to pop up, those limiting beliefs, those fears, all those different things. And it's not about making them disappear. It's just not allowing them to take over you, right? And
Yes.
to take power or control over how you do or don't move.
Exactly. Don't allow yourself to make decisions from that place. Do not make decisions from a place of fear, doubt, uncertainty. That's just going to keep you stuck. Yeah. Just don't make decisions when you're feeling that. Just you can feel it because it's a normal, natural human occurrence, right? I mean, we're here having a human experience, which means there is going to be all of these feelings. There's going to be pain. There's going to be sadness. There's going to be disappointment. That's just a part of the human game. And that doesn't go away, by the way, when you're making millions of dollars or when you have a best-selling book or when you're living in your dream house. None of that goes away. There's still doubt, fear, uncertainty, guilt, all those feelings. And there's also joy and love. It's the same human experience. That's it. It's the same human experience.
No, I'm glad you brought that part up. I think that's a great way to kind of put a bow on that. And I think I want to now talk about goals, right? And talk about them in a practical kind of manner, because I think obviously goal setting is amazing and it's great to set a goal, and writing it down on paper and all that stuff is amazing. But then the actual accountability and the process of getting to it. And then also, I think, tracking your progress, right? And that's something that I think can be difficult for people because it requires this level of just like being able to kind of be very critical of yourself, not in a negative way, but being able to really just kind of see what you're doing from a zoomed out perspective, right? And then I think, for us, our particular group, like we had talked about, we set 2 words to kind of start the year, like your intention, right? And for me, mine were community and presence. And those are 2 things I want to cultivate more this year. I want to live in those things. But how do I check the progress of that, so to speak, right? It's not like a dollar amount that I set, in my notebook that I can see to my bank account as it builds towards it. So let's kind of start there, because I think not everybody had a goal when we talked about it towards like some grandiose thing of I'm quitting my job or I'm going to save this much money or whatever it is. When you have those sort of more spiritual goals, right? Or those lifestyle goals that are equally as important, how do we kind of keep ourselves accountable? How do we check on our progress within that? Kind of what are the steps to kind of get us to that finish line that we're hoping for?
Yeah, this is a great question. Thank you so much, Dramos. Yeah,
sure.
For this, because I think a lot of people struggle with this when they have a goal of like, I just want to be healthier or feel happier or build community. Yeah. So what I do is I challenge them to come up with a way to measure that. Yeah. Everything is measurable. It is measurable. It's just that our brain doesn't think in those terms, right? So let's just take a really subjective one, like I want to feel happier.
Right.
Okay, great. That's beautiful. How do you want to measure happiness, right? I'll walk them through a process of like, how do you want to measure happiness? What are the different ways that you can measure happiness? Is it a feeling you feel? Do you feel it at a certain time of the day or when you're with your family or in a certain situation? And sometimes it'll come right down to, can you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 on a typical day, 10 being like the most happiest you've ever felt, and 1 being like you don't even want to get out of bed or you're really, really depressed. What would you rate, Tuesday? What was Tuesday? And sometimes it requires going back and like thinking about it, right? How would I break that down? I don't know. Tuesday was maybe a 5. Great. All right. Let's start charting that, because there are ways to measure. At minimum, by asking yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, where was I at this week? What would I rate myself? A 6, a 7, an 8? Another way to measure, let's say, happiness, and I'm just taking the most like subjective one or general one, but if this was health or community, for instance, we could definitely break it down to numbers. But another way to measure it, to measure happiness, is by how many moments of happiness I documented, right? So I had a client once who, when she experienced a moment of joy and we were documenting joy, I would have her take a pen and actually mark her hand. like a tally on her hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a tally, a moment of joy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was also connected to being present, right? Which is one of your goals, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it requires you to be like, that's joy. I just felt joy. Okay, I'm going to tag it on my hand.
Right.
A little tally mark, which you could do with anything, by the way. You could do this with anger. You could do it with any feeling that you're trying to keep track of throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, she would tally, oh, I had 5, or I didn't have any today, or I had 1. And then by the end of the week, we would have like a number that would help us keep track. Yeah. The reason I think it's important to take things that are untangible or unmeasurable and make them measurable is because this also starts separating ourselves from the behaviors that are getting us closer to our goal or moving us away from that. What I mean by that is we start to look at this information, like let's say, for instance, your community goal. Let's say we decided, okay, you're starting with, 8 people in your community, but we want to grow it to 50 people, right? And that's a way to measure. Where are you at this week? Where are you at next week? Or there are ways to measure community, right?
Sure.
You can also do it through surveys, right? And how people define community and all of that. Okay, so let's say we take that goal. If we start to look at the numbers, we start to look at it as data. And data, when we think of data, right? We think of like scientific data. We think of math. We think of things that are separate from us. It becomes less personal to our day-to-day life, and it becomes more like just information, which is really what it is as you are tracking along, as you are holding yourself accountable, as you are moving through the process, right? And accountability, I mean, that's a whole nother story. You should have somebody supporting you with accountability, because holding yourself accountable is actually really difficult to do. If you're taking on something new in your life. Yeah. But if you're tallying along, instead of taking it so personally, the numbers give us a little bit of this feeling of, oh, well, this is just data. This is information. And then we're separated from it. And we can start to analyze the data. Oh, okay. I want to, build community, and, I'm not at, 1,000 people yet or whatever. Right. And then we just look at the numbers. That allows us to have more clarity through the process. And we start to build a different relationship with the data, where the data is, empirical data. It's just numbers, it's information, and we can choose to do what we want with it. It also gives us a sense of neutrality. Like, oh, okay, this isn't my whole life. This is one aspect of my life that I'm starting to measure. And how do I want to move, in the direction of increasing this number? So I think that's really helpful. So I do actually, in my group coaching program, we do actually measure things like happiness.
I love that though, because I think oftentimes we just get so caught up in like how to actually do something, right? Like if you're like, hey, you should meditate every day, somebody will have a million questions on what does meditation even look like? Like, how do I sit? Do I have to cross my leg? You know what I mean? Like we get caught up in so many different things. And I think what you're talking about is like a very practical way to break down what it is that we're doing, and then also removing the emotion behind sort of having to critique ourselves, right? Where you're just making it a very simple, like giving yourself a grade or 1 through 10 or whatever it is, like that day. I like that approach a lot. And you're really just taking the emotions out of it, and you can really look at things from a practical standpoint. And I think things like that really do help that self-awareness that we obviously keep talking about being, so incredibly important. And on kind of that same idea of self-awareness, I think one thing I want to touch on, because I hear this a lot from people, is they get excited about an idea, they set a goal or an intention, and then they kind of fizzle out on that, right? The passion behind it, the excitement begins to fade a little bit, and they get to kind of a crossroad of, is it because I don't enjoy it, or am I just being kind of lazy and falling off the wagon to a degree, right? And I think with goals, sometimes you don't know if it's something you really want until you're there, until you get it, or you're really just in neck deep in it. And then you can realize, oh, this might not actually be for me, and it's not what I thought it was going to be. I'm curious if you ever run into this with clients and how you would kind of coach them between figuring out why it is that they're stalling, and if it's really because it's not what they intended, what they enjoy, or it's some other sort of limiting belief, or they're getting in their own way, whatever it might be. how do you kind of differentiate that and figure those different things out?
Yeah. So first we start with the understanding that you're not always going to be motivated. Like motivation comes and goes.
Right.
Even if you love what you're doing, right? I love what I do as a coach. And there are days where I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to coach anybody today.
Sure.
I just don't feel like doing it, right? I really love what I do. So it's impossible to believe. I mean, it's just not realistic for me to think you're going to be motivated every single day, or I'm going to be motivated every single day. So let's just leave that to the side. And let's just decide now that even if you love your goal and you love what you're doing, you're not going to be motivated every day. That's just the bottom line. So you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, as with anything in life, right? No matter what. Yeah. So separate from that, when somebody keeps, let's say, hitting their head up against the wall, like they're moving forward on their goal, but they're like, yeah, but it's just not working. It's just not working. It's just not working. One, I always think people give up too quickly. So I always tell people, stay in it. Stay in it. Get to your 100 fails. Have you failed 100 times? Have you tried 100 different ways to hit your goal and still not made it happen? Yeah, I really want to support people with staying in the game as long as they can. But at some point, I do have a conversation with them about getting into their gut instinct, right? There's two different kinds of feelings. There's like the feeling of, oh, I really don't want to wake up at 2 a.m. when my kid is crying and, it needs me to get up and get the kid and all that. Like that feeling of like, I don't want to get up. Yeah. And then there's the gut instinct that we feel, right? That's a different kind of feeling. That's a deeper feeling. And so what I walk my clients through is a process of really getting clear. You want to stop this goal, or you want to quit on this goal, or you want to pivot the goal. Where is that coming from? Is that coming from a gut instinct feeling? Let's examine that. Let's process that. Or is that coming from the, I don't want to wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning feeling, right? Which is more of a superficial human experience feeling. I don't feel like doing it. I don't feel like sending more emails. I don't feel like getting on another call. I don't feel like, so I'll examine both of those and I'll have the client go through a process where they check in with their body, right? Because your body knows. Like your brain's going to lie to you guys, but your body doesn't lie to you. So we'll check in with the body and we'll figure out if it's a gut instinct, then we start to examine more. And we usually end up pivoting that now you've hit some clarity that you have that you didn't have at the beginning, but now you have it and you're getting a gut instinct that this isn't it. I'm not headed in this direction. And that's okay. Then we pivot and we take all the information we learned in that process, right? To pivot into this other direction. But most of the time, it's a human feeling that you're getting just from your human experience. Like, I'm just tired of sending these emails again. And, all right, but are you really done with this goal? Let's talk about when it is working. Maybe it only worked once. That one time that it worked, how did you feel? Did that bring you alive? Did you feel passionate about it? Did it make you feel joyful? What was your experience with it? And usually it is like, yes, it was joyful. It was positive. I'm just not getting enough of it. All right, let's reconnect to how we can get enough of it. Yeah. But usually it's strategy. It's strategy, not the goal. It's the strategy.
Right. No, and I think that's a great kind of just reminder, because I think, we glorify like people who are living their dream or getting to make money off of their passion. And we just somehow think like they're always going to be on it and they're always just like living this, heavenly life. Like today, when I tell you I struggled to record a podcast episode, like struggled, I had to get every ounce of motivation in me to record this damn episode, to like sit down and record it. But once I did it, I was like just in my zone and I was happy doing it. Right. But it was like the mental battle that happened because I'm tired, I'm that particular moment, don't necessarily feel like speaking and getting into a whole conversation, about what I was talking about earlier. And I had to just get past that point. And then, then the passion kicks back in, right? When I push past the physical things or the mental things that are kind of coming up for me, like you said, due to just being a human being, right? I didn't get enough sleep last night and I'm tired and I have a lot of other things that I'm like anxious that I have on my to-do list that I need to just get done, right? And that's like making me feel like I can't sit down and record this podcast for an hour, right? And I love, you bringing that up, and I love bringing up in a practical sense, like, it's not all sunshine and rainbows on this whole thing, right? And I harp on this because I think in the wellness space, everybody pitches this idea of like, I figured this thing out and like, boom, it's off to the races and everything is good. It's like, it's constant work. You're always going to keep having to, build that muscle, as you were kind of calling it, right? And maintain that muscle, I guess, at the end of the day. And it's going to take a lot of work, on a regular basis to keep, maintaining that. And I think that's a really important kind of designation to make for people as they go out on their journey. And I'm gonna open up for questions in just a second. But the last thing I want to ask you is, can you pinpoint, one moment when it comes to your coaching that like is kind of the thing that ends up pushing your clients over the edge to where they actually go and are right there hitting their goal? Like, is there a particular mindset they develop, an action they take, a particular point in their journey that like it's like, oh, this is actually going to happen? You see it once they hit that milestone, boom, they're good to go.
Yeah, I think the biggest pivot that happens is they shift from this thought that life is something that's happening to them. They shift into full responsibility for everything in their life. Like, I'm responsible for all my relationships. I'm responsible for where my career is at, where my business is at, where my health is at, where I live, what's in my bank account, all of it, just taking responsibility for it all. So they shift from like this idea that life is something that's happening to me to the thought and the belief that I am the one happening to life. I am the one that's in the driver's seat. So if I'm in the driver's seat, I control my thoughts. I control my feelings. I control the direction in which my life goes. And it's all me that's looking back at the mirror. Yeah. Not from a place of dread, which I think is where a lot of people start off, right? But from a place of empowerment, from a place of inspiration. I think of like, I don't want to bring her up, but whatever, this song, Taylor Swift, right? I'm the problem, it's me. Yes. Right. Yes, you're the problem, it's you. And you're the solution too. Listen, you're the solution. You're it. Like, you're the problem and you're the solution.
Yeah, I love that. Right. But and that's real control, real like empowerment, right? And I think I always like, even, you look at things like people who struggle with addiction or some sort of issue, like they're not the ones who end up getting over it. It's because they decide that for themselves, right? It's not because their family dragged them there kicking and screaming, or dragged into therapy or did any of these things, right? It's like when you get to that point where you tell yourself, this isn't who I want to be, and I'm going to take control and become the person I want, that's when the real change begins to happen. And it can't happen any other way till you have that accountability and you empower yourself in that way of you're the one taking charge. And I love what you said. It's like life is not, happening, like it's not in control of what you do. You're the one who's designating what life is or isn't going to kind of end up unveiling for you, which I love. So first of all, thank you so much for all your thoughtful answers on that. I know I got a lot out of that, and that was very. I just think it's practical, right? Like when you break this shit down in practical manners, it just doesn't feel that difficult, right? But without right. But and like I said, we all just sometimes just need the vocabulary to slow us down and get out of our head and like just be able to see what that next step looks like. And once we see that, we can, make our way towards, whatever, through the forest or whatever analogy you want to kind of take on it.
Yeah. Well, not only do we just need that, I mean, it won't happen without that. That's the bottom line, is it won't happen unless you are like in a gym for your brain that is constantly moving you forward, because your brain will just forget. It'll go back to default setting. Default setting is the shoulding, right? I should be here by now. I should, or I'm not smart enough, tall enough, pretty enough, rich enough, whatever, fill in the blank. That's default setting. You'll stay there unless you are consciously reprogramming yourself on a regular basis. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I like the mental gym thing, I think is a great analogy.
Man, big shout out to Wendy Amara for hopping on the show. Big shout out to her for taking the time. I mean, the beauty of these conversations, man, these are people that, charge a nice chunk of change to have people basically pick their brain and to inspire them. And the beauty of the Just Be Social Club is that you get to have access to them, even if it's just for a short period of time, for free of charge, just for being a part of the club. We're giving you that access. So I'm excited about all that we're building with the Just Be Social Club and all the guest speakers that we have coming on. And man, I've just heard some great reviews from the people who've been a part of our OG group. So again, you want to be a part of it, email Brenda at Mind of a Young Lord, or just shoot me a DM at DJ Dramos, and I'll check that out. Now, without further ado, let's tie everything we talked about today in a neat little bow in a segment we call Conclusion Stew.
Time for Conclusion Stew.
All right, so I feel like we just got into it with Wendy, and I'm loving just, man, the energy from that conversation, the practicality of like keeping yourself accountable, right? Even if you have goals that go beyond just career, because some people actually do like their job, which is a beautiful thing. And maybe your goal, like we were talking about, is sort of more of a feeling or a way of being. And I love how she talks about creating a practical way to track your progress on this goal. And I think that's incredibly important. And that's probably something that even I've been missing to a degree throughout the course of my life, is like really having some sort of accountability, and not accountability, I'd say more progress, like tracking progress. You know what I mean? Like really seeing where I am, where I can improve on my journey towards my goals. And I'm really excited to kind of apply some of the concepts that she talked about. We're all learning and growing in this together. That's kind of the beauty of this club, the Just Be Social Club and the mastermind that we're putting together. And, you hear Wendy even talk about herself. She's somebody who's been doing this for a long time, has had a lot of success. And she too is a part of masterminds, and she too has mentors and things like that. It's just, I think, a necessary thing if you're really trying to create the life that you're hoping for. And like she said, the rich people out there, the rich white people out there, all have things like this, mentors and things like that. And it just was never really brought to our community. We never thought about it. So we're kind of the first people really pushing to have this kind of community aspect of people who can help each other out and push each other for personal growth, which I just think is amazing. And yeah, I mean, so many great things about getting over the fear of going out there. And I love like the get it done mentality, all those things, just really training your brain to just push past all of the noise, all of the limiting beliefs that it puts in your mind, and just get your shit done. I think that's just an amazing simple concept to have, and we all owe it to ourselves, to give ourselves the best chance to lead the life that we've all been dreaming about, which I just think is a beautiful thing. So, man, big shout out to Wendy for hopping on the show. Last time, Brenda at mindofayounglord.com or at DJ Dramos. If you want to shoot me a DM, if you want to be a part of the Just Be Social Club, we have a couple spots left for July. So I'm really, really excited to launch that second group and just keep bringing more and more people, value, and giving everybody a community. Like I said in this conversation, one of my words this year was community. So this is a big part of that, building the community that I've always wanted to see. And that's what the goal is with Just Be and all the work that we're doing. So you want to be a part of it, hit us up. Speaking of Just Be, we just dropped a bunch of new merch. We've got meditation pillows. I'm throwing some candles on the site as well, which I'm really excited about. So justbe.nyc. You want to check all that stuff out. And that's it, man. I'll catch y'all on Thursday for our Thursday Trends episode. Till then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.